Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Prepare to have your bones chilled and your hairs raised. It's the WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Welcome home.
Is saying "get this train a rolling" like is that too old now? Is that like that's not really? Nah, the train system is just not a popular thing these days.
It'd be more like get that Uber rolling.
Get that Uber rolling. Well, as you know, if we're talking about transportation methods, this must be a WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Yeah.
Psych. It's a fucking horror movie podcast. You people know that by now. Dude, we have kind of a, I'd say it's juicy in the way that like a rom-com is. It's got that like romantic element in a way. The movie we set aside for this week. I mean, in lieu of the impending holiday.
We should have recorded this one for 38 instead of 39 because obviously 38 is going to come out tomorrow, 2 days before Halloween. But 39 is going to come out next weekend. Either way,
I didn't even think about that.
I mean, not Halloween, but Valentine's Day. Yeah,
I think it's perfect.
We're in lieu, like you said, in lieu of Valentine's Day. We're gonna talk about a 2001 horror movie that, although I've seen multiple times, I know a lot of people have never seen or heard of this movie because it kind of just did pass by with no fanfare. It's one of those movies you can tell it's kind of trying to ride off of the success of Scream, and I actually have an interesting story to tell that why I feel like it feels that way. But it came out 5 years after it, and it just, I don't know. I don't know if that's to its detriment or what, but it's a ho-hum all right horror movie.
It really is. Valentine, man. This movie is like you said, 2001. I looked it up. It's a pre 9/11 horror movie. It's February 2001. So, it's I don't know why that matters. It just keeps popping up on.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. It's interesting that you say that because, like, one of the interesting facts about the movie is that the director, who I'm going to talk more about here in a minute, Jamie Blanks, he wanted it to be more gory and more violent. But
interesting.
Even though this happened years afterwards, the studio were like, no, because of Columbine. So it's interesting that you would say that, and then a little bit later, there were things that were affected by 9/11 happening. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because whether people think about it or not, and there's straight up tons of people now in the world who have never experienced a pre 9/11 world, and I don't know. There was like certain things became kind of like almost like off limits to do in movies.
Totally.
And anyway, but yeah, this movie, it opens up with some fucking heartbreak, really, if you ask me. Like the credits start rolling, and
so real quick.
Oh yeah, so talk about the director, because we see Jamie Blanks pop up, and
before we jump into the movie, I have an interesting. So Jamie Blanks, before he directed this, and he directed one of my favorite 90s horror movies, Urban Legend.
Oh,
so there's an interesting story about this. So this guy, he directed this like student film. I think it was in 91 or 93. And a couple years later, because of that, a manager sent him the screenplay for Scream, which was titled Scary Movie at the time, because they were interested in him due to this student film that he made, which I want to watch on YouTube. But anyway, he ended up getting passed up. Long story short, he got passed up for Wes Craven, which makes sense. So a little bit later,
it's wild though. He got the opportunity.
It is. A little bit later, he got the screenplay for I Know What You Did Last Summer. which was also written by Kevin Williamson, which is just kind of ironic. But anyway, so for this film, he still hadn't directed a movie before, so he didn't have any way of, people knowing who he was. So he wanted to show his talent, so he took $3,000 of his own movie and filmed like his own what's the word I'm looking for? A trailer for the movie, and sent it to the studio. And they liked it so much, but the timing was off because they literally just hired Jim Gillespie to direct I Know What You Love last summer. But anyway, they told him, don't worry, we're going to come up with something for you. And sure enough, 9 months later, they gave him Urban Legend. So it's just interesting how
that's wild, actually.
Passed up twice for these other movies that went on to be, big names in 90s horror, more so Scream, obviously, but then got the chance to do Urban Legend, which I think is a strong 90s horror in that vein.
Absolutely. I would put I'd put Urban Legend right up there in terms of 90s movies. But that's crazy, man. So he just it just sounded like he didn't have like the experience or like like you said, like any sort of backing, like he didn't have a film or anything. So it just kept kind of like this cycle of like, oh, well, you look like you don't know what you're doing, but you kind of look like you do know what you're doing.
Right.
Valentine, though, is if Urban Legend is up here, Valentine has got to be kind of like. Do you think it's a disappointing entry in his filmography?
I do, and I don't think all of it's to his credit. I think a lot of it has to do with the studio and things going on, but it's a lackluster movie. Even it's unfortunate because it has a cool premise, it has a cool looking killer, and it has a lot of names in it. Like, I'm just going to run down some of these names before we jump in the movie and some ties to other things. So Denise Richards is in it, obviously. We don't need to talk about her. She's been in a bunch of shit. David Boreanaz was in it.
I know, dude. I was so surprised to see him in this. I was like, Angel?
Like, Angel, Bones, SEAL Team. Marley Shelton was in it. It was in, Scream 4 and Scream 5, Never Been Kissed, Sin City. So the girl that plays Dorothy, her name is Jessica Capshaw. She's apparently Steven Spielberg's stepdaughter, which is interesting. Jessica Caulfield. The girl that plays Lily, her name's Jessica Caulfield. She was in Urban Legends 2. She was in White Chicks, and then we have Katherine Heigl, obviously, who's in Bride of Chucky. So there's a list of people that like this is why I say it's another like a reference to Scream, where at Scream there's some actors in that movie that were up and coming, and then there's also some big name actors, and that's the same in this one. Like David Boreanaz was kind of up and coming, same with Heigl, you know what I mean? So it's interesting.
No, that is actually really interesting because I mean, like you said, there feels like there's so many parallels to like what they were doing, like with not Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like if you look at the basic like premise of this movie, like if they're like the thing that pops up on Shudder, it literally just says adolescent indiscretions return to haunt 4 friends who are now young adults. like that can go anywhere, that could be any. It's like a 90s horror movie premise for sure. Dude, that's what I'm saying. And so, there's also like Katherine Heigl, kind of like we get Barrymore with her, dude. Yeah, she gets Barrymore, but it's not like it's not that great level. Though, dude. Yeah. It's like. But we get anyway. We can jump in now. With, at this point, would Denise Richards probably be the most like, like she had probably done Wild like, the Things. Most, yeah.
And she's still. I mean, I remember when I watched this movie when I was younger. I was like a younger kid. I was a teen. I was like just used to be obsessed with Denise Richards.
Denise Richards to me, she was. Yeah, dude, she was like, how do I say this? She was like, she's always been so hot that it was like I could never meet somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're too hot. You're too hot for me. I look too goonish on your arm, you know? But that's kind of okay. So that, I mean, sort of similarly, that's what happens in this opening sequence, right? So you kind of dive into this situation where it's like a, you know, like a junior high dance, and you know, poor fucking schmuck over here is like going from girl to girl asking if, you know, they want to dance and just getting denied with disgusted looks and you know, cast aside. And
the worst one is Paige, which is the character that Denise Richard plays, but she actually has a line where he comes up and asks her to dance, and she's like, "I'd rather be boiled alive," which is like some great foreshadowing to how she gets dispatched later. But yeah, there's just, you know, you can see he's this goofy looking nerdy, you know,
just junior high kid, and he eventually, which one is it? It's Dorothy. He eventually goes up to Dorothy and asks her if she wants to dance, and
she's a little plump, you know, she's a little bigger.
And she you know, she goes to she agrees. She's like, sure, you know, and then, but quickly that turns into macking underneath the bleachers. And classic fucking move, man. But lo and behold, some bullies fucking stumble upon them macking, and then she quickly turns on the kid and is like, no, I didn't want this. Like, he's like basically just like being like,
he attacked me.
Yeah. And so in response, the bullies like basically kind of carry him. They pour red punch all over him.
Yeah.
and
strip him down to his briefs.
Yeah. And then like it looks like they basically chase him out to the dance floor and kick the fuck out of him.
Yeah, they just basically gang beat him in front of the fucking junior high.
Yeah.
One of the actors, if you did, I don't know if you noticed, but it was like his second credit, but he ended up being like a child actor, and then he was in Shameless. His name's Noel Fisher. He was in like Max Keeble's Big Move, Agent Cody Banks, but he ended up being like a side character on Shameless.
Yeah.
But he's been in a bunch of shit, but it's like a second credited role. But he's one of the four. I think he's the one that does the actual talking, where he walks up and he's like, "Perv hitting on Buffalo" or whatever.
Yeah, dude, like that makes sense. They give him the talking line.
She turns. It's a pretty sad scene, bro. Like
it's rough, man.
This meek, geeky, obviously like kid that, you know, finally gets some female attention, and then she turns the tables and gets him beaten up. And then later in the movie, we learn the fate of what happened to him after this incident, and it's not great. So, yeah, you know, that's the introduction. That's the open of the movie, is this little scene.
Starts it off with childhood trauma, and then it kind of cuts away to it becomes a scene featuring
13 years later.
13 years later, and I believe it's Katherine Heigl and
Shelley is her
Shelley,
name.
and who's the guy she's with? Jason?
Oh God, yeah, she's on a date with this like level 10 fucking douchebag Jason, dude, who refers to himself in the third person. It's hilarious.
Like, and not even like every now and then. It happens frequently based on the conversations that we see.
Yeah.
Like, this guy just is a tool, and you know, Shelley knows it because she's just sort of like, I think one of the shots you see is like her like scraping "help me" into like her potatoes or whatever on the plate, like, you know, and like, but there's so many there's a few moments in this movie, and this is one of them where it's like they have this rough date and it doesn't go well, and then the end of it, like the dude's like, "Come on, I don't even get like some dessert. Give me a kiss." Like, what do we do? Like, he's like really laying it on. Like,
the whole thing escalates kind of funny because they're like talking, and he's like I mentioned, he's talking in third person, so he's like, "Jason wants to find this in a mate." Next, and the next thing, she asks for the check, and then in a total douchebag move, he gets a check and he goes, "Whoa, muy expensivo," and then makes her pay for her own food. And then after the fact is like after that, when they're leaving, he's like, "What? I don't get a kiss."
So
and then
bad.
and then one of the great lines at the end is when she's not gonna give him a kiss. He's like, "This hard to get shit doesn't play with Jason." Like, he's just a tool.
It's hard to play shit. Doesn't play with.
It's
shit.
Hilarious.
Oh
Like some of the
dude.
comedy later, like the comedy like during like the speed dating scene isn't that good, but this scene's actually pretty funny. Like, I think in credit to the actor that plays this little bit role, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fucking Jason, dude. And so this date basically ends, and then we follow Shelly to, I guess, like the medical school she's going to, and
she's a medical student.
yeah, and she, like, I guess is doing some late night autopsy work or something, because
she's studying for her medical exam, it would seem.
Yeah.
You know, working on a corpse. Yeah.
Working on a corpse. So she it's kind of, she's in classic sort of fashion, thinks that she's alone here with the corpse, and then, hears a noise off in the distance.
Which is a reoccurring theme in this movie. Unfortunately, they couldn't come up with other ideas to get characters from what they're doing, but yeah, she hears a noise.
And that's when she she's like wandering around, and then you have a kind of a jump scare moment where she stumbles upon a fellow medical student, and then she quickly notices a Valentine attached to her, or
taped
her
to her locker. Yeah.
It's kind of a creative Valentine, I'll say. You pull it down and it does something, but
yeah, I wrote down what they all say. So this one says, "The journey of love is an arduous trek. My love grows for you as you bleed from your neck."
Ooh.
And like you said, it's one of those like I don't know how to explain this, but you know those books when you were growing up, like in elementary school, where
those like
it would have like a little like a little tab you would pull and it would pop up. It's like that, where it has this guy and a girl, and then you pull the pop up and it's the guy has a knife. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and like the knife's like stabbing. Yeah, it's yeah,
it's creative.
It is, man. And so obviously that's kind of creeps her out. She's sort of just like, what the hell is this? And but then decides to continue her studies, so to speak, and so she goes back to the dead body. The cadaver, and there's this great moment, and this is like what I imagine like so many people fear, these kind of scenes, or like in real life, as she's about to you start cutting into the abdomen. She notices like it inflates as if it's fucking breathing, and then she freaks out, has this like moment where she kind of jumps back and then runs into the closet behind, not runs physically in, but like kind of knocks into the closet or whatever behind her, and that's when she sees the actual cadaver smack against the fucking glass window, and you're just
fall out. Yeah,
dude. And I was like, oh shit. Like I was like, maybe that's just in her imagination, and this quick thing happened. I was like, that's good. But she turns around, and even more important, that fucking body that was on the table is gone.
Yeah, it's pretty good actually.
It was. I was like, damn, that's slick. So this is where it really gets intense, I guess, right? Like for this opening sort of like Katherine Heigl Shelley moment, because she's really
she grabs a scalpel,
and then starts. I don't know. It's like, it's always weird. It's like I don't know if characters like this are trying to escape, or you're actually trying to, find the killer. Like what's going on here?
Well, I guess at that point you would know, like, so you're probably on your guard, like trying to look around for him. But yeah.
But she definitely like has like a quick run in where it's like, the killer almost gets her from behind the curtain. She books it. And
but then she does something stupid.
And what's that?
Well, she makes her way into like a when I was younger, I thought this scene was really cool, but watching it now, I was kind of like, that was a dumb idea. But she goes into like a room that's full of like, there's probably like 8 or 10 body bags in there, and we don't see her, But when the killer comes in, you're led to believe she's obviously hiding in one of these body bags, which not a really great idea necessarily. So the killer comes in, and if we forgot to say, so in the opening scene, there's like when the little nerdy kid, the character's name is Jeremy Milton, when he's getting beat down and it shows like the crowd of the school, there's one student that's wearing this little creepy like cherub looking Cupid mask. So the killer is wearing all black, which is like, you know, a good typical like slasher killer, but wearing that's a same looking like Cupid mask. I think it's a cool mask.
I do too, man. I was like, it's very creepy. Like that.
It's one
like
of the highlights of the movie.
Definitely, like the look of the killer was not like, I had no problems with it actually. You know,
not at all.
But yeah, and so as you were saying, like the body bag kind of situation, like it quickly dissolves because the killer just starts stabbing like the cadavers, you know, as he's going through them.
Yeah.
Process of a fucking elimination.
Exactly.
Right? But that's the thing, like he doesn't just like, the killer doesn't just like stab to the bag. Like he like unzips the bag and you see this shot of like, you know, Shelly coming like screaming and like her head pops up and the killer like quickly like just slices her throat and like zips her back up into the bag. Like, dude, you're fucking done. It's just like,
I get it, like you get cornered into this room, but I feel like you'd have had a better chance of surviving if you would have like tried to spring out from a corner or just face them head on instead of fucking put yourself into a body bag. Like,
yeah, dude. You basically did the killer a fucking service there, really.
But yeah, she gets Barrymore'd, but it doesn't hold the same weight or effect that the original, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it definitely didn't because as you know, by the time this movie came out, you know, that was one of the things that had really surprised people about Scream. Right. And so it was like, but
5 years later,
what they're doing, like.
And I think like Heigl only was on the set for like 3 days, so they had to film her scenes pretty quick. And there's also an interesting thing about this movie. There was like multiple other like people that were obviously in any movie there's going to be other people that are considered for the roles, but at one point like Tara Reid was considered for one of the roles, same with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Jared Leto was one of the people that was going to possibly be the role that David Boreanaz ended up taking. So, you know, it's just interesting when you hear names like that.
It is, but because mainly like, how do I say it? Like the cast, like it reminds me of like people were just trying to cast like those characters from other movies, like, right? Like you're like, we're trying to find a Sarah Michelle Gellar, we're trying to find a Jennifer Love Hewitt, we're trying to find, you know, like and that I mean, it's just part of like, I think them trying to replicate certain things from those movies. But
we forgot to mention when right before he kills her, when he opens the body bag up and it shows the shot of the killer's face, the killer is bleeding through the nose of the cherub mask. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah, that's right, which is a reoccurring thing.
Right. And also we also forgot to mention, God damn it, I just thought of it, because that would have been a major plot hole to this whole podcast. But in the scene in the beginning with the Jeremy Melton, the little nerdy kid, after he gets the punch dumped on him, but before he gets stripped and beaten, his nose also starts bleeding.
Yeah. So it's kind of to the viewer, you're like, oh. So this whole scene like quickly transitions into the speed dating thing scene that you kind of referred to a little bit ago, where,
yes,
you know, it's just a couple of good friends on you know, on a classic speed date night.
Yeah, we're introduced
Kate, right?
Yeah, we're introduced to Paige, who's played by Denise Richards, and Kate, who's played by Marley Shelton, and she ends up kind of being the final girl of this movie. But yeah, they're heading to a speed dating event. It's kind of alluded to that Denise Richards' character, gets around, and we learn that that Kate is kind of in this, on-off relationship with this guy named Adam.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. It's pretty cheesy.
It is. It's really cheesy.
And it ends with Kate getting a phone call that.
And Paige also. There's like, she meets this guy named Brian who comes into play later. Like it's one of the
That's right.
Kate was initially like, it shows all these cheesy scenes of these like bad interactions with these guys, and then it's like this kind of good-looking stud-looking guy, but Paige jumps in and steals the thunder and gets the guy's phone number. But yeah, as they're leaving, Shelley gets a phone call from her friend Dorothy, and gets the bad news about Shelley, because they're all friends that were from the beginning of the movie, because there's Kate, Paige, Lily, Dorothy, Shelley, it's all of them. Kate, Paige, Lily, 3, Dorothy. So the 3 that like cruelly rejected the kid in the beginning were Paige, Lily, and Shelley. Kate was the one that like kindly turned him down, and then Dorothy's the plumper one that danced with him. Anyway,
No, it's true. It's good to know that Kate was kind of like the least fucking rude out of all of them.
She was like maybe later, Jeremy, or something like that.
Yeah. So from the date night, it kind of picks you up to day of the funeral for their friend Shelley.
Correct.
And there's a moment where they're all walking away, and I feel like this happens to Denise Richards' characters often, but there's like a quick moment where like she takes off her sweatshirt, and then one of her friends is like, Christ, like put those titties away, basically, like, and it's
right. I was going to point that out, but before then we get a scene before it's all the girls together, it's Kate, and we get introduced to Adam now. And they're talking. They have a little scene where they're walking and talking. They get to his car, because in the scene where they're doing the speed dating, it's alluded to that Adam has an alcohol problem. Mm-hmm. So,
and in the car, in his car, she kind of discovers a bottle of tequila or something, I believe, and he quickly like explains that. I feel like he's sort of like no, that wait, what was the excuse? Like that's for like a coworker or something.
Yeah, his coworker just got a really good gig being like a reporter for the Giant, so it's for him. And then he also mentions that he's been off the bottle for 3 weeks now. So, but then it's the girls. They're all talking. We get that joke you mentioned about. There's lots of zings in this movie back and forth between them. There's lots of zings at Paige, alluding to the fact that she's a whore.
Yeah, and it even goes like a little bit further, like. Anyway, later in the movie, but it starts with the introduction of this detective that comes up to them as they're talking.
Detective Vaughn. He looked so familiar to me, but then I realized I just kept mistaking him for a different actor. Yeah, he does. He I know what you're talking about.
And he kind of comes up and questions them, and they don't really give him much information, but they definitely get weird with it. I feel like I can't remember what the exact question was, but he asked them at one point something, and then like they all just get like really kind of quiet right afterward, and it's just sort of like now he's definitely going to be suspicious.
Because he also mentions that the guy that Shelley was last seen with, his name happens to be Jason Marquette is his full name.
Yeah, that's right. And
he's missing. Well, because that comes up the JM comes up in a little bit.
But it's funny how often it's around.
He's established as like a red herring right here, where he was the last one seen with her, but now he's missing. So yeah, Detective Vaughn asks them some questions. They don't really have much information, but he does give Paige a card in case they think of anything.
Yeah, it's funny he gives Paige the card.
Right.
Yeah, and so this, I believe, we kind of follow like Dorothy going home
Yeah, she goes to her big mansion where she
Fucking
lives.
Huge ass place.
Where she lives with her dad. She gets inside and then she gets a Valentine's card now that she gets in the mail. She's happy to see it when she gets it. And this one is also a little bit, creepy. So this one reads, "Roses are red, violets are blue. They'll need dental records to identify you." And then this one has the initials JM on it.
Yeah. I feel like, and I mean, maybe this is just me, but I kept thinking, like, I feel like the killer's being, like, really, like, toying with obviousness if he's just putting his, like, initials on there at this point. Like, but maybe that was part of it. But this, like, she has that moment where she reads that and you're just like, what the fuck? And even she's just sort of like, okay. And then the doorbell, or well, then somebody appears at the door, and the door, it happens to be like a friend of hers. We learn Campbell. We learn in a little bit that he's like a love interest of hers. But yeah, he comes to the door with a duffel bag in hand and spills this whole story to her about how his roommate wasn't paying the rent and all of his money is tied up in this new internet investment that he's going on. So long story short, he mooches his way into staying with her. Yeah.
And later we see more of this. He's kind of like this like charming con man, but he's another kind of douchey type character.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, I mean, I feel like this house is full of douchey type characters because it's like,
oh yeah, the weird interaction with her stepmom.
There's a lot of thing. It's like, what the fuck?
There's some scenes like that I feel like definitely were just really random, had no bearing in the movie because we don't ever see her or the dad character again. I feel like they were just like to add filler to the runtime.
Yeah, I agree. It was such a random scene. It was just like this negative interaction between her and her like new very young stepmom. And, at one point she like grabs Dorothy's arm and like shakes hers.
Well, yeah, they trade barbs because it's like this young, obviously attractive lady that's married to her much older rich father. She's alluded to as being a mail order bride. The stepmom makes this joke about alluding to the fact that Dorothy has no sex life, and then Dorothy's like, yeah, well, at least I don't charge by the hour or something like that. But yeah, they get in an argument and the girl starts speaking in like whatever language she is. The dad comes down and basically like ridicules Dorothy for not treating her stepmother politely. And then it's the end of that and you never see them again. So like I said, it's like, it's so
it's
random.
One off. And I think from there you kind of you pick up with Kate, I believe.
Yeah, she's taking a shower. And then in classic fashion, you hear something go on in the other room. and so she gets out of the shower and like goes to investigate, and that's when she finds out that I believe the water ends up being off. Because she goes back to just go back to the shower and nothing turns on. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of, what fucking timing. And then she as she's like realizing that nothing's working, she tries to call her landlord. That doesn't happen. He's, and then ends up like going to wash her hair. She just uses the toilet water, man. That's like this great scene where she's just like, and she just like dunks her head into the fucking toilet, Yeah, unfortunately.
But as she goes back to like pick up, I believe, the phone that's ringing, that's when she notices, I don't know if it was open the entire time or not, but that's when she notices the front door to her apartment open.
Yeah, she also hears, she notices her door is open and kind of you hear this faint beeping sound and she comes out and she hears the sound. There's an elevator nearby of the sound that like an elevator makes, the like ding, ding, when the door's being blocked.
Yeah.
And she goes to investigate that too, and she notices that blocking the door is a cherub mask, and she kind of picks it up and eyes it. And then she has a creepy interaction with her neighbor Gary, who has an interesting way of hitting on her. So
Scary Gary, dude.
Everything he says rhymes with Kate. He's like, "You look great, Kate. You should be my mate, Kate." It could be fate. Yeah,
that was the fate, dude. Jesus.
And then she's like you said, she's like, "You're scary, Gary."
Yeah.
It's weird.
It was weird, man. I'd be so weirded out by a neighbor like that, man.
But then we jump to Lily and Paige, and Lily's watching like it's funny. They had like kind of like how they had that speed dating thing, which was like popular at this time. This is at like the tail end of like video dating, and Lily's watching a video date. She's let down by the guy in the video, and then she gets I think it's either a knock on the door or a doorbell rings. Yeah. But no one's there. But long story short, she finds a heart-shaped box of chocolates with a note and a rose on it.
Right. And she thinks they have a bit of a moment where she assumes it might be for her, then they assume that it might be for Paige, and then kind of they go back and forth, and I think it lands on that it was for her.
Yeah, because initially she thinks it might be she mentions this guy named Max. So she reads the card, and the card this time says, "'Tis a well-known fact that beauty is skin deep. Savor the taste, you are what you eat." And it also has JM on it. She makes a joke to Paige about it must be yours because you've covered more of the alphabet than I have. But anyway, she takes a bite. She takes a bite of one of the chocolates and notices that there's maggots in it.
Gets.
That'd be disgusting. It would.
That would fucking be, yeah. That'd be rough.
They sit down after that, and they're discussing JM names, and this is where the first time that someone thinks of the Jeremy Melton. Paige mentions Jeremy Melton, and it reminds Lily of the nerdy guy from 6th grade. But that's right here. It kind of just gets thrown aside. They just bring it up. They're like, it couldn't be him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. They're just like, nah. That was way too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody might remember. And yeah, so like you said, they're just kind of going back and forth on it, and that's when I think, doesn't it just kind of go from that scene to the art gallery? Yeah, we cut to this art exhibit that we learn is put on by Max. He's an artist that Lily's kind of seeing, but we get a lot of things that happen in this whole sequence, because at first, when we get introduced to this art exhibit, we see Jason from the date at the beginning, who is supposedly missing. Obviously, the girls don't know who this guy is, but he kind of first smiles at Paige and Kate, but then gets this like cold look on his face and leaves. What was with that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's because it is kind of random. Then we don't ever see him again.
Yeah.
And we also get a scene where Paige goes up to flirt with Campbell, not knowing who he is, and then Dorothy comes up, and Campbell gets introduced to the girls.
It's a lot of like, and we also meet Max, right?
Max, right.
The artist.
Kind of like
every guy in this movie is so douchey. Like,
I know.
It's so fucking ridiculous.
It's true.
Oh my god.
Also during this scene, like Paige and Lily bring up to Kate and Dorothy about what happened earlier with them, and mention Jeremy Melton. We have to mention the art exhibit. It's like this. It's basically like a bunch of TV screens throughout this giant, wherever they're at, like whatever place he rented out, and there's weird things on every screen, like and some there might be like a couple together or one person, but it's all very sexual. There's like one of a girl with a bra. There's one where it's like lips moving. There's like multiple. Love me.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's multiple like screens where that it seemed like where it was just like some mouth saying something, or you know. Yeah, it's a weird setup. But while they're all talking, and like I think it's like the first time when they're all together that Jeremy Jeremy's name is mentioned.
Yeah.
And like they have this interesting like moment where they're like, oh, that's so weird. Like we were thinking about that person too. And like it's like while the Max guy or whatever is giving his like artist's like speech to everybody, he like stops and like clears his throat, you know, like, like
yeah.
I love that. I was like, nobody cares about you, man. But then they divide up, and it's like women on one side, men on the other side, and they're supposed to go through the exhibit that way.
Right.
And that's really when like you have some moments where a couple of the characters end up like splitting off from each other for a bit.
Yeah. Because at this point, Lily and Max are they're at a separate section of this exhibit now.
Dude, this is such a random. Oh my god.
Yeah. It was. They're like making out, and then we see it's like Max's assistant like pops up like kind of close by to watch, and she seems to be enjoying it. She's like
starts like unbuttoning her shirt a bit.
Yeah. And when Lily notices it, this is what you're talking about, where like every character, like even sort of like David Boreanaz's character Adam is a little bit douchey, but not much. But like this character is also painted as a douche because they're making out. Lily notices the girl, and Max basically explains, you know, I invited her here to watch. Like I thought you'd be cool with this. Yeah. You know.
he's like I thought you just, you know, you'd be down with a quick 3-way in the art exhibit, you know, while we're here. It's all good. But but that lady, I loved it. The lady like kind of like holds up her top and then like scurries away. Well, I'm not invited. But yeah, so that ends poorly for Max, we'll say.
Yeah, Lily basically tells him off, and it mentions, you know, I gotta be up early to catch a flight, and you're a cheap hypocritical sleazeball. And he says something funny. He's like, yeah, but I thought you knew that, or something like that.
I thought you knew what you was getting. Yeah, it's just a super random scene. Like I guess it serves to paint, you know, the stress level of this character as she kind of keeps, because from there she sort of starts like winding her way into the exhibit further, trying to find her way out. It seems like
it's interesting because it's like she's almost like a maze, but also of note, it seems at this point, and who knows how much time went from when all these people were looking to the exhibit till now, but it seems like everyone has piled out of the exhibit because Lily gets lost in the exhibit, but there's no one else around. It's just her.
That's what I mean. It was like all of a sudden like completely empty. It felt like, except.
Yeah, well, except for one person.
For her Valentine. Yeah. But this is like, you know, in sort of like I'd say like a classic Valentine Day movie kill moment, or at least it should be. You have a bow and arrow sequence here, which is fucking great because like
it is.
From a distance, you almost like don't see the killer at first. Because like the dark coats just blends in with everything, but then like, you know, Lily gets just thwacked with a fucking arrow right into the fucking, I believe like kind of stomach, you know, torso area, and that's like, you know, not even just one and done, dude. She gets like Boromired pretty strong. Like she takes like something like 3 arrows or something like that. The final one sending her over the fucking edge of like a staircase.
It's a pretty cool whole sequence because she gets shot with one. She gets shot with the second one, which sends her reeling back through like part of the exhibit, and she ends up going into a door, like a back exit, like fire door. Like you said, she makes her way outside, and then the third arrow sends her plummeting down. And this scene of her plummeting down was definitely a homage to Vertigo. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, there's that scene in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo of the character looking down this like stair set of like a apartment where it's like winding down, and that's what this kind of looked like. She plummets down like 6, 7, 8, 9 fucking stories and lands like up into a well-placed dumpster. It's actually a pretty, you know, some of the kills in this movie are lackluster, but this one, I really always enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
Like you said,
out of the movie, this one was probably one of my favorites. I'd say like top 3
like
or 4.
And like you said, it fits the motif of, the guy's wearing a Cupid, the killer, whether it's a guy or a girl, is wearing a Cupid mask, so it falls in line with the Cupid character, bow and arrow.
Definitely. And then like from there, unbeknownst to the other characters, you kind of pick up with some of them, mainly Dorothy and Campbell, who end up having this interaction. This is one of those moments where it starts to paint that picture of Campbell being sort of a con man in a way, because this third character comes into the scene, and what's her name? Do you remember? It's basically like Campbell's supposed business partner or whatever.
Yeah, her name's Ruthie.
Yeah, and Ruthie just confronts him and is like, where, where's the fucking money? What is this? I think they make a joke about the website, calling it bleedmedry.com.
Yeah. She alludes to the fact that, he took all this money from her for the investment, and also mentions to Dorothy, watch out for him,
Yeah.
And she comes into play later, but yeah, you kind of learn here, maybe, there's something up with this Campbell guy.
Exactly. And, so that kind of leaves off on like a sort of sour note, because you're just like, okay, what the fuck? And then it picks up with Adam and Kate. So everybody's kind of like, you're kind of building character in this whole sequence with everybody.
Yeah, it seems like they just got done with the dinner date. She mentions how things have been weird lately with the mask, her creepy neighbor, that some of her underwear is missing. Or they're actually, sorry, they're at dinner at this one. There's a scene later where it's like alluded to the fact that they just got done with dinner, but they're like at dinner. There's also there's like a quick scene where Kate orders a Corona, Adam orders a club soda, and then she decides to get one too, to kind of, and kind of, because he's dealing with alcoholism.
Yeah. I appreciated that. As somebody who struggles so hard with drinking, it is it was something that like I was like, man, like Nadine does that for me all the time. She hardly ever like has booze at the house even, and
that's
stuff
cool.
Like that. And though I don't I try to not put pressure on that. It's really nice when you go to kiss your partner or whatever, and they don't smell like beer. You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of just like a great little move.
It was cool. It was cool.
Way to be classy, Kate.
Yeah, for someone in recovery, I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Because yeah. Anyway, now the next scene is we're back with the girls talking to Detective Vaughn. They're in one of the girls' house. He asks where Lily is at one point, and they tell him that she's out of town, because that's what they think she's like in LA. And then he brings out this card, and it took me a second to realize what it was, but it was a remembrance card that the killer sent to Shelley's parents. Oh. And this card is kind of short and sweet. All it says is "too bad, so sad," but it has the name. It doesn't have the initials. It has the name Jeremy Milton on it. And so
that's what I mean. Like, I feel like this cat's trying to like it.
He's toying with him.
He's toying with him so hard.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. And this is kind of, so they do try to explain to the detective, right, like about the other Valentines and the connection.
Yeah, he was
with
he was a nerd from school, and that like you said, they tell him about the cards they received. And we kind of learned here that through this interaction that this kid, after this incident, was sent to reform school. And like I said, we learned more later, but yeah, we learned it. And then so Vaughn leaves, and it's the girls talking now. And this is where Dorothy finally admits to her friends that she wasn't actually attacked by Jeremy Milton, that it was reciprocal, but that at the time, she was the bigger girl, and that when the guys saw what was happening, that she couldn't bear it, and that's when
because in
the way she did
in the situation, though there's she was an adorable little girl, looked like, but it was like one of those, you can feel that junior high pressure where it's like she's getting made fun of for shit. This kid's getting made fun of for shit. If they get caught together, it's gonna be like all hell breaks loose on both of them. And so like, that's why she's like, no, I don't fucking know this, like nerd, like, well,
because when you're younger, obviously in that situation with her friends that were more popular and prettier, kids are cruel. They might have disowned her for that or what have you.
You get the vibe with her character that like she's like the rich one of the group, and so maybe that's why they were like always
they were initially friends with her. It's a good point.
And so anyway, so that it's a really pivotal scene, even though it does feel super quick, but like that's when she just breaks it to her friend. She's like, I fucking lied about that whole situation. Which
at least she finally admits it.
And
then we get that. It's good that she finally admitted it. And then we get that interaction where I'm talking with Kate and Adam, where I'm talking about where it's like, it seems like they just got done with a dinner date. They get back to her place and they start kissing, and she actually invites him up. But he actually plays the good guy card here and is like, I don't want you to do something that you're going to regret in the morning. So it's kind of nice of him.
Classic line though. Hey, I will say this: Angel's smooth as fuck. Okay.
He's a good-looking guy, but he has that like peak 2001 hair, that like spiky fucking hair.
Yeah, dude, it's like kind of like purposely messed up, but like definitely pointed upward. It's like purposely ruffled, but like to be spiky. I don't know, man. It's bizarre. But that's like it's like this almost the same look he has in Bones, like later on in life.
I did not like that show. I'm sorry. I know people that are huge fans of that show.
I'm gonna say right now, I watched like half an episode of that show, and I was like, "Fuck this."
I could not be bothered with it. But anyway, so now we're back. It looks like we're at the police office. Vaughn's talking to the girls about Melton, and this is where we learn now that after the incident, he went to a reform school, then he wound up in juvenile hall, then he wound up in a state-run mental hospital. We also learned that a couple years before now, where we're at, because in the movie is set in present, so it's 2001. We learned that a couple years prior, that his parents had died in a fire, and that his whereabouts are unknown, and that it was ruled an accident.
Damn.
And then he pulls out. This is some good technology for the time, where they take a photo. He has a photo of Jeremy Melton as a kid and runs it through this program to show what he may look like now. You know what I mean?
I loved that though. It was like such a funny sequence because it, like you said, it dates the movie perfectly.
Totally.
He's just running through all these like hypothetical, like, could it be this guy? Does this guy look familiar? Does this guy look familiar? And it's like they're all like very similar, but just like with facial hair or glasses added to it.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
But then you have, and this is another one of those moments like I don't know. It's like a strange moment in this movie where, that he sends the girls all off, but he keeps Paige behind.
Well, first, hang on, real quick. First, he mentions to the girls after showing them this computer thing, and like you mentioned, all the different scenarios. He mentions how it could be anyone. Mm-hmm. He brings up Max. He asks specifically more so Paige, but asks the girls if they have a boyfriend. Kate brings up Adam and his background, kind of ruling him out. And then, he gets to asking about Campbell. Dorothy mentions that she just met him a month before. And then when Vaughn asks what his last name is and Dorothy doesn't know it, she gets flustered and angry and is like, I don't need to do this, and leaves.
Yeah. She's upset because she keeps telling everybody that she met him at yoga. And that's all they need to know.
Well, like, and in her eyes, and we learn this more later, it's like, she wants her friends to be happy for her that she found this, potentially this good-looking, charming guy in her eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She wants to be
exactly. But anyway,
yeah, get to what you were gonna say.
You just have that scene, that like the ultimate creep scene. So the detective creeps on Paige, and it's great because in the moment you have him getting slapped down, rejected. She like what's the line?
It's kind of funny because
he grabs her leg or whatever, and she's like, "Can you move your hand off my thigh?" He's like, "Where would you like me to put it?" And you just like shove it up your ass, like.
Yeah.
But it's just great because I think it's one of those things. Like I said, I feel like I've seen Denise Richards talk about this, or heard her talk about this a little bit. Like, she definitely always played like over sexualized characters.
Oh yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
it's just like, it's a cool moment to have a character of hers who's being over sexualized in this movie, sort of like not want it. I think that's like a good point to bring up sometimes.
She was definitely over, even in like later roles, like when she was in Blue Mountain State, her character was like over sexualized. It's kind of a shitty like typecast that she got put into, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I chalk it up. It's like it's a typecasting thing that ends up happening to people. But anyway, all this scene does is kind of like really paint you a picture of, one, the detective's not really being fucking helpful too much, and two, he's just a douche. Like he's like every other dude in this movie, he's a douche.
He's a creep.
And so after this like interaction, you kind of pick up back at Kate's apartment.
Yeah, but it's interesting though.
But Kate's not there.
No, we see the killer pick up an iron, go into the room where he thinks that Kate's gonna be, but it turns out to be Scary Gary, who's trying on her pantyhose. And we get this great line where he notices the killer, and the killer's standing there, and Gary pops up and he's like, "Hey man, I'm not well," or something like that. It's hilarious.
But dude, the killer doesn't have it, man. He fucking domes the dude. He domes Gary with the iron, and then he it's gnarly. And then he burns his face with the iron, and then like a fucking mace, he just like beats the dude with the iron. Like, oh my god, it's an intense quick scene, but you don't see the full outcome, but you just imagine that the dude's dead.
It cuts to Kate getting out of a taxi outside of her apartment, and Adam's there to surprise her with the gift. We learn here that there's going to be a Valentine's party at Dorothy's tonight. He gives Kate a lollipop, and she's like, "I have a gift for you too," and she gives him this card that says, "I owe you TLC." And then they kiss. She goes up to her apartment, and it's yet another scene where she gets into her apartment and hears a sound and goes to check it out. But Paige happens to not the killer or Gary. The killer and Gary's dead body are like magically gone at this point. Paige pops out and scares her. They get a call from Dorothy, who explains that Campbell was questioned by the detective and that he's angry, and Paige is like, "Well, you can make it up to him, use your imagination."
Use your imagination. Yeah, it is funny though. There's a quick moment where Kate like kind of like looks at the iron that's in her living room, and like notices that it's not the way she left it, but she doesn't full on mention it or anything. She's sort of like, "Is that the way I left it? I don't think so." You can tell with her face and stuff. And, which is like,
that's because she does. Yeah, she walks in, and that's the first thing she notices, that the iron is like neatly wrapped up, not how she had left it. But then they get a phone call from Vaughn, who tells them that they found this Jason Marquette guy, who is one of their who is a suspect, and that they have him in there for questioning.
And then didn't this pick up with Dorothy and Campbell right after that?
Yep.
Where Dorothy kind of going out of her way to sort of, you can tell she wants this dude in her life, we'll say. She seems to like gift him a pretty Pretty slick little gift that he wasn't expecting.
Expensive looking watch.
Oh yeah. Rich, expensive looking watch. You know, it's as for a con man, he's probably like stoked about it. He's like, yes,
Totally.
this is what I'm here for. But you know, he plays it off, and they get a little Mac action.
I love this though, because they're okay. So this is hilarious to me because they're shown in bed, and it's alluded to that like you know, he was a let down. She's let down with his performance. There's kind of a line where she's like, don't worry about it. And he's like, I'm sorry. So it's like obviously like a premature ejaculation type of event happened. But this is interesting. So I don't know if you noticed this actor. He hasn't really been in much. I think he was more did soap operas, but he
looks familiar though.
He was in Van Wilder, and he plays the super douchey frat boyfriend of Tara Reid.
Yeah.
And he's shown in it like in a different scene, like fucking this other girl, but his character in Van Wilder is also like underperforms in bed and premature ejaculate. So it's just so weird that the same actor has to play like two demasculated characters in these two different movies. It's like, why?
I wonder if that's something he had to shake off later on.
Yeah.
You know, he's just like, no, trust me, babe. I'm good to go.
And you know what's the shitty thing about like, and every guy, I'm pretty sure every guy has, you know, at least once, maybe twice had that happen to him.
It's a moment, man.
And it's kind of like one of those, like, you have no like bearing over that. It's not like when you're having sex that you decide like, okay, I'm going to last 2 hours or I'm going to last 10. Like, it's like, you know what I mean?
You just set a clock in your mind and in your dick, and you're just like, all right, let's go. No, that's not how it happens. Trust me. Like everybody involved in sex, it's all about the feels. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they have this, you know, there's that awkward scene. Dorothy says she's going to go shower. And then as she's showering, we think we're going to get like a Psycho-esque scene, but no, Campbell pops up in the shower and kind of mentions this line about it's my turn to take a shower, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
But then gives her, he's like, it's my turn, and gives her this gold necklace. Mm-hmm. And then tells her, you know, I have to go to this investor meeting, but I'll be back for the party. And you can tell that she's kind of disappointed by that. But then we follow up with him some more. And this is where we learn more of, this guy's totally a con man, because he's on the phone, like talking to someone on the phone about draining an account of his money under a different person's name.
Yeah. And he seems to get angry at the person for asking like more and more questions as the conversation goes on. And that's when you get this Dorothy kind of on their the house's intercom system or whatever, like asked him to go to the basement and reignite the pilot light. Mm-hmm. He has this funny line where he's like, perfect, I'm on the staff now, or something like that. This dude, he's oh man. And anyway, I felt like immediately as soon as he was, you know, you got the all right, I need you to go to the basement, I was like, oh, this fucking dude, this dude's on a path of and he does he ends up down the basement. He does do two things. He relights the pilot light and he fucking dies. So I love it. There's two funny things. So he relights the pilot light and he has this great line where he gets done relighting it and he like brushes his hands, you know, like, and he has this funny line where he goes, well, that's worth at least a Porsche. Yeah, dude. Fucking guy. But never done a fucking day of work in his life, it seems like. It's one of those shots where, and this has happened in other horror movies, where as he's lighting the pilot light, there's something in the background that you need to pay notice to, because when he's initially lighting it, we see that there's an axe like in a piece of wood. And then when he's done lighting the pilot light, the axe is gone. And then he quickly gets, this is a kind of another like lackluster kill where I'm talking about, where apparently James, the director, wanted it to be more, he wanted it to have more of like an 80s slasher with more gore and blood, but the studio shot him down. Because I feel like this scene is one of those scenes that was more tame, probably because of that. Because he just gets axed in the back once and falls to his death, and that's it. Where it's so quick.
it could have been more brutal with the killer like laying in a couple more hacks, but yeah.
Exactly. And I feel like I feel like that is like one of the limitations of this movie is that, you know, if they would have just ramped up some of that gore and some of those moments, like it would have been just like so much better. You know what I mean? But you know, either way, this dude gets dispatched, and like I don't think anybody watching this movie is gonna be like, "Oh, I feel bad for Campbell."
No, not at all. Not at all.
Campbell.
But, so now it's you knew he was gonna die.
You knew it.
So it's nighttime now. We see that there's this raucous party happening at Dorothy's house. There's DJ, the whole 9 yards. The girls are there. We see that all these different characters are there from the movie. Adam's obvious there. Brian ends up being there, the guy from the speed dating. We see Dorothy is stress eating, thinking that Campbell is standing her up or that she's been dumped,
Yeah. And, so it's just kind of like everybody, it's setting the stage for like all these different like moods. Kate is becoming more happy with Adam again. Like Paige has got a boy coming, so she's fine. Like it's just I just kept thinking, I was like, who the fuck throws this giant ass party for fucking Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it's kind of a random.
It's so like it's like a weird day to just go like, let's.
It must be nice to be filthy rich. So.
I guess we'll say, we'll chalk it up to that.
But yeah, so we get introduced to Paige is dancing. We get reintroduced to Brian, this Brian character who walks up, and he's such a tool. He walks up and looks at Paige and goes, "Hey, hot stuff." Yeah. And then they start grinding, and then he looks at her and says, "I'd much rather take you upstairs. I have a surprise."
That's what I mean, dude. Like, it's like another moment where it's like all of a sudden, like 2 minutes into the situation, like you've been bumping and grinding on this lady for like less than you're gonna last in bed, and you're like, yo, let's just go fuck right now, baby. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but like, as somebody, that doesn't really work that way out in the field. No. You know what I mean?
But then again, there are guys like this. Like, he's a good-looking guy. He's probably had his sway with women before. Yeah. But
let me say this: for ugly minimum wage workers, it doesn't work this way.
No, for people like no, I could have never done that. But
anyway, so he follows him and Paige. Have they're just like, all right, let's go upstairs. But you get the vibe, and this is Paige's like pivotal scene coming up here, because you get the vibe over this movie that she's been like more and more like, why the fuck is everybody just like on me? You know what I mean? Including this guy. And so it's like it's kind of a random scene for the movie if you think about it, because it has nothing to do with the killer.
Of course not.
But it's like, it's actually really funny. So they get upstairs and the dude's just like, all right, like, yeah, you ready? And then he just like drops trap.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and he's basically just like, get to work, like kind of status. And it's just like, what the
he even like, he drops his pants and says, surprise.
Yeah, surprise.
And she's like, your surprise is you wanted to show me your penis? And he has this great line where he goes, what are you waiting for, honey? Wax it. Like, what is it? Like, does that work?
That's what I mean, dude. It's like this fucking schmuck, dude. And so this is just such a great moment though. So Paige, like goes out of her way to just be like, all right, I'm gonna fuck with him. She gets him to like, she's like, take off your shirt, like get fucking naked, and she gets him all naked. And then she finds some, sashes or whatever, and like ties him to the bed.
Blindfolds him.
And then like while straddling him goes like, you want me to wax it? And he's like, yeah. And then she like grabs a fucking hot candle and like pours hot wax on his dick. Which is so fucking funny. And then just like leaves him strapped to the bed.
To add insult to injury, she leaves him tied to the bed naked. It's pretty good. It's good it's a good like turn for her where like we talked about, where she's this over sexualized character. It's joked that she is like a promiscuous girl, so it's funny that she turns the tables on this guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like and it feel like it's so rare in 2001 era or like prior that you see like I don't know, the over sexualized character turn the table there.
Yeah.
You know, and like have a little one up. So it's just it was just like a really random thing to add to this movie though. Overall,
More, like I said, more to add to the runtime.
Yeah.
Then we get reintroduced back to this Ruthie character who shows up at the
crasher.
shows up at the party uninvited. She sees Dorothy and tells her that the necklace she's wearing was stolen and that it's hers. And Dorothy's like, he loves me. And the Ruthie character's like, he loves your trust fund.
Yo.
They make her leave. Then we see this scene where Paige comes downstairs and, you know, explains that it was a letdown with Brian. She grabs a bottle of champagne and tells Kate that she's going to go chill out somewhere. Max shows up too and explains to Kate that Lily never showed up in LA and that they don't know where she's at. Tries hitting on her to no avail. And then Ruthie sneaks back. Your
friend's missing. You want to bang?
Yeah. It's just a lot of quick interactions that happen. But then we get back to Ruthie. So we see that she snuck back in. She's rummaging through Campbell's duffel bag, finds his wallet, finds his watch, and that seems to please her.
Yeah.
So she goes to leave, and as she heads down to a different room, she's walking through a room with like a pool table in it, and you can see there's multiple doors. And as she's walking through it, the killer pops out from another door, dragging the body of a maid.
Yo.
Bad timing,
man. Because like, I feel like at first she didn't like necessarily believe what like she was seeing,
yeah.
You know, like this is crazy. What the fuck is going on here? But that immediately like leads to, you know, she domes the fucking killer with a pool cue, doesn't she? She's like, oh shit, and she like smacks the dude and like takes off. Like,
yeah, good for her.
Good on her, man. But you know, like eventually the killer catches up with her as she's hiding out in a fucking like shower in a bathroom or something like that.
Well, so first she hides in a sauna.
Oh yeah,
The killer comes up and she eludes the killer. She thinks the killer's left, so she comes out. She also finds Campbell's dead body, but so she comes out.
That's right.
She comes out of the sauna, and we get this tense scene where she's slowly walking around, and then this is probably my favorite kill of the movie, because the killer just jumps out of nowhere, throws her through like the glass, like a door of a shower, shattering the glass, but leaving like jagged parts of it on the bottom. Grabs her by the scarf and just shoves her throat first into one of these big, long fucking pieces of glass.
Gnarly, dude.
It was great.
Yeah, it was so good. And like, honestly,
it was like, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I didn't think that they were gonna go full bore with it, but it reminded me of the creepiness of that scene where in a Zombie, where it's like the glass to the eye scene, which is like you can never top the creepiness of that to me, but
it
and like
totally
the cringiness
has.
of that. But like it's, you know, it's like hinting at that level. You know, where it's like she's like, no, don't do it, and then like, you know, because there's like a good second where he's like holding her head and then like wham. Yeah, dude.
It totally gave me the same like Italian giallo vibes, because there's a lot of in Argento movies too, where a character gets like smashed through glass or decapitated with glass or stabbed.
A lot of glass work.
But yeah, that's a cool way to kill off this character. And then we go back to Dorothy and Kate, who are talking about not hearing anything from Lily. Kate gets a call from Vaughn saying that they had to let this Marquette guy go due to no evidence. She mentions to him that Lily never showed up to LA. He tells her to stay put, that he's on his way.
Yeah. So he's like rolling up. He's going to try and roll up to the fucking big party to save the day. And that's when Kate runs into Adam again.
Yes.
Who you haven't seen in a little bit. And he appears to have been getting a little liquored up, maybe.
Yeah, he's on the sauce.
And she, you know, calls him out on it, and, you know, then like brushes him off and kind of walks away, you know, kind of status, because she's, you know, I mean, she's salty about it, obviously. But it's like, then you kind of, you know, she like I said, she shrugs him off, and you kind of pick up with Paige. Sorry, I don't know why I was blanking on that name there. I was like, and this is, I don't know. This scene is like pretty fucking great. It's you pick up with Paige, who's like chilling in a hot tub, and
drinking champagne, and of course, at some point, I believe you hear a little noise or so, but. Which happens with like almost every major death in this movie. Yes, it does.
And she thinks, it must be Brian lurking around. She tells him to get the fuck out of here if he is. And like, I mean, I will say this is probably one of the more creative like sequences.
It's a good sequence.
Death-wise, but like the killer like pops out and like throws her back in the hot tub. Like shuts it's like, I don't know, glass doors or whatever over the top of it.
I've never seen a
glass cover.
Any hot tub I've seen is just that same like whatever material.
Yeah.
This is like a glass see-through cover. It's cool. Yeah. Shuts it, leaving her with not much air.
And doesn't he like crank up the boiling?
Yeah, and then as if that's not bad enough, he grabs this drill with like this hilariously long drill bit on it.
It's the longest drill bit I've seen. and yeah, it just starts like trying to get at her in the fucking thing, through the case. It's like a combination of like, do you think she's gonna drown? Do you think she's gonna get drilled? Do you what's gonna happen?
Yeah, it's pretty good it's pretty cool actually. But this is what I'm saying, where this is like in the first sequence of the movie, a little bit of foreshadowing where when the Jeremy Milton asks her if she wants to dance, she's like, I'd rather be boiled alive.
Yeah. And
you
are.
The killer tries drilling through a couple times, and she tries to catch a little air through the holes that the killer drills. But at one point, she gets drilled in the shoulder, and then I thought the first time I saw this movie, I thought that he was going to keep drilling through to kill her, but he kind of subverts expectations, opens up the lid again, and throws the drill in.
Yeah, electrocuting.
He gets two birds with one stone here, because not only does he kill her by electrocuting her, but it also shuts the power off to the whole house.
Yeah.
Dorothy thinking they've blown a fuse, but this leads to all of the party goers leaving.
Yeah, they even make a comment about like, wow, people clear out fast or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But it's a cool. Her death scene is good. It's another good tense scene.
Definitely. And, it's another shot. And it happened a few other times, but, they focus on the bleeding coming out of the dude's mask again.
Exactly.
So it kind of reminds you, like, that could be the dead giveaway. Of like,
but yeah, we're back to Dorothy and Kate now. The power's out. People are leaving. They talk about, wondering where Paige is, but then they mention she's probably with Brian. And then Dorothy, out of nowhere, like, starts accusing, she's like, what if Adam's the killer? Because of this and this, he could have had surgery and all this, the next thing. And then, using that same logic, Kate says, well, it could be Campbell. They end up arguing about it. And Dorothy ends up like going on this rant about how she was always the fat one and says, screw all of you, and leaves.
Yeah, dude.
Storms off in a huff.
Finally, like this boil over moment for her where she's just like, fuck y'all. But she's but she's so wrong though. That's the thing. It's like, anyway, but yeah, she's, like you said, she storms off, and it, that's kind of where you follow, you're still following Kate at this point, who's trying to make her way through the fucking party. And
yeah, she finds her little clutch, gets her cell phone, and heads outside and decides to give Vaughn a call. Yeah. But
that doesn't seem to go too well. It goes to voicemail.
Well, no, it does not. She calls Vaughn, and then she can hear.
That's right. She just kind of moves the phone away from her face.
She can hear his phone ringing nearby somewhere, and like she's expecting that he's. Anyway, long story short, she calls his phone and she can hear it ringing somebody nearby where she is. So she's walking around outside trying to find the source of she comes, like we talked about, we're at this big mansion. So she comes across this like
It's like a koi pond or something like
expensive looking pond outside, where she hears the phone. She looks into the water and sees that the IOU note from Adam is floating in the water. And when she goes to pick it up, Detective Vaughn's decapitated head floats to the surface too.
I always love those kind of shots, man. Like where it's like, the dead body reveal in the fucking water or whatever. Like, you can always make the head, like the body part, look just kind of nasty.
Totally.
And, yeah, it was a quick shot, but it was like, it definitely,
it's effective.
It's effective. And having like the IOU plant right there immediately makes you suspect. Like, you're just like, okay, Adam.
And she is suspectful.
Exactly. And that's basically, where you follow her. You follow her into like a confrontation almost with Adam. And he's like trying to be the sympathetic, nice guy, like, Kate, come on, I'm begging you, like, it's me, like,
yeah, but I think he says something here that, because she kind of already suspects him, and then he makes this line where he's like, you're the only good thing in my life, and those other people can die as far as I care, but you mean something to me. And you can tell this freaks her out because she immediately knees him in the dick.
Yeah.
And runs upstairs looking for Dorothy. Notice that like one of these rooms is in shambles. She goes back downstairs. He asks her what the hell is going on. She walks backwards down a flight of steps as he follows, that kind of questioning her.
Yeah,
and she's
still
like,
I just want to talk, the entire time, just trying to be like, I'm.
But also in these scenes, they kind of paint him a little creepier too, like because maybe he's drunk or whatever, he's acting a little sus. But
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But she, due to her, fear of him, she ends up smashing a champagne bottle over his head. So here's the interesting thing. So this scene was originally written in the script, all right? But this is when he was like at his height of the popularity with the TV show, and they didn't want to shoot this scene in fear that like something might go awry and cut his beautiful face.
Oh my God.
But he wanted, him and Marley Shelton agreed that they wanted the scene so bad that they were going to do it anyway. And they did. And I guess it pissed off the people making the studio, but they still put it in the movie. So it's just interesting.
Oh, wow. That's fucking wild. His beautiful face, not his beautiful face.
But she smashes him over the head with the bottle. Mm-hmm. She runs off and first she stumbles across Paige's dead body in the hot tub. She stumbles across Ruthie's dead body in the shower. She tries to use a phone to call the police, to no avail. And then she grabs a pistol.
Yeah,
it's like the first smart thing she did.
Cabinet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I agree with you. It's like the first smart thing that she's done in a hot second here. And like this immediately is just like, I don't know. It's like hard to tell, because at this point in the movie you're still thinking like, they're painting it real hard that he's the one, and it just gets so confusing, because in a moment here, as she's wandering with the gun, she gets attacked again by the killer
in the getup,
and he gets knocked down a flight of stairs, and
she drops the gun,
and the killer also falls down the stairs.
Yeah, they fall down together, and which would obviously be pretty painful. Yeah. They plummet down the stairs. Kate gets up first and looks over at the killer, and then the killer has like I know we've made a lot of wrestling references, but the killer does an Undertaker here, and does the pop up.
Yeah, dude, just pops right up, and like she's the killer's going after you, Kate, but no, blam 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 blam, dude. Adam to the rescue. He hoses down the killer. Yeah.
I counted twice. Fires off rapid fire 7 fucking blasts of the pistol into this killer's chest.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, because I thought that was kind of cool, because That was one scene I liked too that subverted expectations because, like I said, the killer pops up and you think you're gonna get this like showdown with them, but no, just the killer just gets fucking wasted.
Yeah, blammy. And that's when, you know, the big reveal happens, and they go over and they take the mask off the killer, and who turns out to be
Dorothy.
Motherfucking Dorothy.
And Kate is obviously, you know, hysterical at this point. She runs into Adam's arms, you know, crying and apologizing. And then we get this scene where they're like, kind of like her head's resting on his shoulder, and she's, you know, he had called the cops already. She's in shock to like why Dorothy would do this. And he goes off on this weird kind of sort of like monologue about, and I wrote this down, everything he says. He goes, you know, if someone is lonely or angry, they can learn to hide it, but inside it never dies. It stays there. It eats away at you till one day you have to do something about it. It's kind of creepy.
It's really creepy, especially like given the situation and everything. And then you have this this was like a great horror movie like moment, you know, it like where it pans up from her head on his shoulders, and you start seeing like a line of blood, and then it, you know, it's all coming down his nose.
Yeah, because it drips onto her face first.
Yeah, and oh my god,
yeah.
you just know though, like that's like one of those endings where it's like, you know, they just leave you on that fucking cliffhanger, where you're like, you're probably not, and I mean, at this point, you're definitely not getting a sequel from this movie, but like it just leaves you on that hanger of like, oh shit, the killer's still out there.
Yeah, like you're obviously putting the pieces together that this is probably, you know, Jeremy Melton. And he set it up to look like Dorothy was the killer. It's obviously not explained because the movie just ends, which it didn't need to explain it, but it is, like you said, one of those classic like not a twist ending necessarily, but one of those classic like leave you on a hook ending.
Definitely. And I always like that about horror movies in particular, because it's like I don't need every movie to have a further story, but I just love the idea of like, whoa, dude, something else is happening.
Totally. Yeah, it was a good way to end off the movie. It's, you know, for what it is, and when I was younger, I kind of enjoyed this movie. You know, it's like a guilty pleasure because it's not on the level of other horror movies of its time. But it's not a bad, you know, it's like you could spend your time watching something much worse. Definitely.
There's definitely much worse movies than this. This one was like, it was quasi all right, and it had a couple of fun kills and
a cool killer design.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, I don't know. I think shockingly didn't mind this movie whatsoever.
It's like unfortunate because we mentioned how much Urban Legend is a good movie with a good plot, yada yada yada. Then he makes this, and it was kind of like, even though it made like its budget back, it was seen as like a failure. Mm-hmm. And he ended up like, I think he's like a New Zealand or like an Australian director, so he never made another like American big budget movie, but he's made a couple movies in Australia, and one of them actually sounds pretty interesting. I might have to check it out. But it kind of like essentially killed his career in a way, which is really kind of a buzz, because Urban Legend was good, and you could tell in that movie that he could have went on to do some other good things. And another like side note is like I was like reading this article about when they made the DVD of this movie, and there's like an audio track. I guess there's like an audio track of with the director Jamie Blanks and also Don Coscarelli, who directed Phantasm, and they have like a dialogue, like they have like a what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a commentary track.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Nice. That actually is pretty cool. It's like, why? That's like such another random like person to be able to like hop on there and be like, hey, talk about this movie with me.
Totally.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, overall, I would say Valentine. I would give it. I'd give it 4 borrowed / stolen necklaces out of 8.
Okay, I
No,
give
7.
it. Okay, I give it 2.5. That's got to be worth the Porsches out of 5.
Yeah, man, it's just it's a fun watch. It's like about an hour and a half or something like that. It's nothing too crazy time commitment wise. I don't see why any of you people listening shouldn't just pop it on for the fucking fun of it sometime.
Yeah, why? So like, I actually watched this like a couple weeks ago. Just because, like I said, it was like a guilty pleasure. So when I noticed it was on Shudder, I was like, oh, cool. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to do this one. But as I was rewatching it last night, as I hopped on Shudder, I noticed that they just put on Shudder both of the Tales from the Crypt movies, Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight.
Yeah.
And I'm pumped. I'm gonna when I get home from work tonight, I'm definitely gonna watch Demon Knight. So.
I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about watching both of them, but Demon Knight's probably got to be the first.
Oh,
on the
it's
list.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love that movie.
Hell yeah. Well, that just reminds me, Corn Dogs, make sure you keep following along because this is episode 39. We got some cool stuff coming up for the next few episodes. We're going to be looking at 80s horror. We're very excited. We're going to be breaking it down.
It's going to be I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, so just keep tuning in because it's going to be a fun few strings of episodes.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah. But all right, hot dogs, we're going to leave it here. You got any final thoughts, David?
No, just go watch some horror.
Do it. Always. All right. We'll leave it there.